Hi everyone, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits and welcome to night 3 of the 2020 Summer Miniskein mini-series. Tonight we are going to look at 50 different colors of food coloring in the Americolor Nifty 50 food coloring set. I have used all 50 colors in one video a couple of times, but I haven't really taken a look at a lot of the colors individually. And so we are gonna dye what will hopefully be 50 different colors of miniskeins. Now, to dye yarn with food coloring, you need to have a protein-based yarn. I will be using Superwash wool today. You need to have acid, which we will use for vinegar, and then you need heat. And we're going to do a cool vat technique. So we're going to let the yarn sit with the dye and the acid for a few days, and then we will heat set it in the microwave. This will allow a lot of the color to absorb already, but then that little bit of extra heat will make sure things are firmly set. If you would like to learn more about any of the tools or equipment that I'm using in my video today, you can find a bunch of links and affiliate links down in the video description. I have played with a number of colors from Americolor. I've explored a bunch of these shades of gray in a video. I have combined all 50 of these colors. We've used them in some random dice roll dipathons, but I haven't actually compared the different hues and intensities to one another. In general, I find this food coloring to be a little frustrating for two reasons. One, there is the titanium dioxide. This is a white, food-safe, insoluble, it's not a pigment, it's just a suspension thing, which can help you get a bright white color on your buttercream frosting, which otherwise might be a little more off-white, have a tiny bit more yellow to it, but it does nothing to yarn. Unfortunately, you cannot add white back into your yarn. So really, instead of dyeing with all 50, I'm really going to be dyeing with 49. I don't think I'm going to bother using the white, just because I know it's not going to do anything, although maybe we will just for science. There is a way that I could go about this where we would know exactly which miniskein corresponds to exactly what color. And unfortunately, that isn't really the way that I'm going to do this today. This is more qualitative. I want to see the range of colors we get as a whole, looking across all of the colors versus seeing, this one skein of red is red versus maroon versus tulip red, if that makes sense. I set up 25 little cups, added a half cup of water to each cup, and then did my best to add 5 drops of food coloring in each of them. Unfortunately, the drop size tends to vary a lot between the different colors in this set. And so that's another reason why I'm not worrying a ton about which mini came from exactly which color, because there is going to be some variability in the total intensity just based on the drop size. So it is not going to be a, quote, perfect comparison between all of the colors. For this round, we are starting with 25 colors. So the first 2 rows and then half of the third, which will take us from red, orange, yellow, green, and through most of the blues, leaving us pinks, purples, brown, and gray to deal with in the next round. There are a few colors that I plan to go and purchase individually. One of them is navy, which is actually going to be in the second set of 25 for this video. But that color has blue number 2, which has a different tone to it from blue number 1 and is unique. It gives a different brightness, and it is so beautiful that I want more of it, and that is, I think, the best source I have right now. That blue 2 used to be in a Wilton's black, but it's not anymore. So navy, Americolor navy is a color that I plan to get a much larger bottle of. I almost wish that during that time lapse I was giving you a close-up of what each of the drops looked like. Most of these were very thick. Some of them came out almost looking like silly string. And then I think that this color right here, the Wedgwood, that one seems to have titanium dioxide in it. You can see how milky that color is right away. It's possible some of the other colors have it, but that milk feel is the dead giveaway. Now, each of the bottles do have the ingredients written on it, so you can know which ones have titanium dioxide and which ones don't. But I went all the way through to electric blue, and then the next color that I will do when I start the second round will be royal blue. Today we will be dyeing some wool to dye for platinum sock mini skeins. This yarn is 75% Superwash Merino, 25% nylon, and each skein is 20 grams. Now, most of it I have just pre-soaked in plain tap water to do a cool vat technique like we did with the Easter egg dye tablets in these containers. But I have 40 grams here that I added to some water with vinegar, just a splash of vinegar. I'm going to be using this as a yarn mop as I use a spoon to stir up all of the following containers. I started stirring the yellow because it is the least pigmented, and then went through the various rows, stirring and then wiping my spoon onto the yarn. Yes, the yarn has some vinegar in it, so technically I'm introducing a hint of vinegar in right now, but I don't really care if I end up getting more of a semi-solid versus or tonal color that is darker at one end than the other. Really what I care about is seeing how many different hues I can get from this 50 Nifty kit. I really regret not using warm tap water for this project. Some of the colors dissolved really easily and others, well, didn't. But stirring did help, and so off camera I went through and did a second round, especially on some of those reds, just to attempt to get it in as best as I can. Here is our first yarn mop. I just wiped it all on the same 20 gram mini skein. I actually soaked 30 grams in here, but I will use the other two as mops as we need to stir things for the rest of this portion. Off camera, I'm gonna go add one more half cup of water to each of these 25 containers. With our higher volume of water, it's now time to add yarn to each of these containers. So I just gently squeezed out the water and placed 20 grams of our sock yarn into each jar. I could notice a hue difference between most of these colors as I was doing the drops, but I think as you add the yarn, these subtle differences become even more obvious. You know, is this a more brown yellow or a more brown orange? Is it a more orangey red or a more true red? Things like that. I still expect that the differences are going to be even more apparent in the blue and green range than in the red, but as soon as we have these all added, we will come and give a closer look. Oh my goodness, this is just stunning. I think I legitimately see 25 different colors here. Pretty close. These two yellows look very similar. The two blues look very similar. These teals are similar, but this one is more pigmented. It is possible that there are some colors in this set that have the same recipe, just different levels of pigmentation. These two oranges are similar. The reds, they do feel a bit different. I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty excited with this range. It stands to reason that some of these colors feel similar. I mean, just look at the tops of these two yellows that were very similar. A lot of them, yeah, electric yellow versus lemon yellow. Like some of them, those differences are gonna be quite subtle. What this grid does show us is it's a really simple demonstration of the wide range of colors and hues you can get with mixing food coloring. This kit contains 7 different food coloring molecules, one of which won't dye yarn. The titanium dioxide, it's not going to dye anything. We've got blue 1, a tiny bit of blue 2, red 3, red 40, yellow 5, and yellow 6. And, well, look at all these hues. We are absolutely going to have a very defined rainbow here. The other thing that's fun for me is to think about all the different ways we could combine these colors into a fade set. I mean, a lot of these cases, if you look across these rows or you look at the columns, I might shift the order of different things. Like I might bring this green down here and maybe swap this yellow into another row, but There are many different ways we're going to be able to put this together for some beautiful and some extremely subtle fade sets, and I'm so excited. Now I am going to add approximately 1 teaspoon of white vinegar to each of these containers. It's possible that we could end up seeing some reds crash out, but I will be letting these sit at room temperature for a couple of days. In theory, I could microwave all of this yarn directly using these containers that they're in, but I enjoyed doing the slow, cool that kind of technique and then setting it at the end. And I think it's pretty interesting to me as a way to scale things up and to plan out different projects as we go forward into the summer months. Off camera, I just quickly stirred each of the containers and used our second yarn mop to wipe the spoon on in between each one again. As I start to place all of the lids on, I want to remind you that the time for color reference is right here in the wet stage. As things get set, as they heat up later on, and as we wash them, some of these colors are gonna just be mixed up. Now, there are some that we will be able to tell. We might not be able to tell the difference between electric yellow, and I think the other one was lemon yellow, but we can tell the difference between that and, say, Wedgwood, which is the only other one I know off the top of my head right now. I definitely could have gone through this in a more detailed, labeled approach, but the goal today is more qualitative. I think if I wanted to be more quantitative with this, I would, rather than counting the number of drops, which is not accurate with this brand of food coloring at all, I think that I would try to fill a measuring spoon to get a consistent volume closer to what I do with Wilton's icing color. Maybe if I was going for, say, 1/8 of a teaspoon or something, that would be maybe 2 drops of one color and maybe like 5 of another. And so that would be better for, I guess, a more consistent comparison. I'm not expecting for things to look significantly different between the way they just looked and once we reopen them. The main difference is that the water is going to be more clear and we might see some breaking on some of these colors. And by breaking, I mean a separation of the colors into some of the more primary components. For example, when we get to the purples, we will likely see some pinks, some purples, maybe even some blues in those minis, depending on how they turn out. As for the 2 yarn mops that we have already, I am going to set those in the microwave. I will be just microwaving on high for probably a total of 2 to 3 minutes. I typically do 2-minute increments, but I have a feeling these will heat up pretty quickly. I will make sure that they're covered in a microwave safe dish though. How beautiful is this? I am so excited by all of these different hues. I'm gonna go put them in a safe place, and I will likely be reducing the height of these stacks to 3. This feels a little unstable, but I will set it aside for a couple days and let this color slowly start to absorb. Around a week later, yes, longer than I intended, but that's been the reality with projects lately. I removed all the lids and arranged the containers in approximately the order they were in when we started. There are probably some differences, some that I accidentally swapped, but this is all about the approximation. And what we care about mostly today are the different hues that we see overall. These look so cool. Okay, let's check in. Now there's a few things I can see right off the bat. There's some color around some of the lids just because of the lips, just from where it did not make it down into the yarn. And here we still have some items that look like they had crashed out. But let's check to see if our colors have absorbed in this time. And yep, that water right there, that is clear. This one has some pink, although that was from the edge. It might just be stained. It's hard to say for sure. Let's pick this pigmented green. That is clear. This one, that is milky, that titanium dioxide, and ooh, we definitely saw some breaking on that one. That is so cool. Yeah, the blues have absorbed. That is great. Now, the question is, should I steam set? I'm a little concerned about there being some color transfer. And in this one, there's definitely some probably red number 3s that have crashed out. So there's a choice between just microwaving these containers as they are, or taking the yarn out, placing it in a bowl, and then microwaving that. So that is the question. And so maybe ones where stuff crashed out a little bit, I might keep separate. Yeah, I guess maybe if the water seems completely clear, then I'll go ahead, put it in the dish. But ones like this one and this one, I'm going to go ahead and microwave these as they are, probably 2 to 6 minutes or until it's really hot. And then the rest, I will take the yarn. I'm going to do this off camera, but I'll squeeze out a bunch of water. I don't want to rinse them right now, because by rinsing them, that would reduce the amount of acid, and we want to make sure that our colors are set. But trying to keep similar colors together as much as possible to reduce color transfer. For example, I'll probably do a bunch of the yellows on their own, but I'm going to place those in a microwave safe dish, cover with a lid, and then I will microwave this on high for 2 to 4 minutes using 2-minute increments to make sure it doesn't get too hot. Again, this is mixing up that total order, but I am excited to see where these colors will bring us. And in this one, I'm just going to do 4 and stick with the most yellow colors. I suppose I could grab one more orange for in here, but I think that that is sufficient to minimize color transfer. It's going to be hard to say if we see a different color in here until the yarn is dry, but nevertheless, this worked great. Now, do we need to heat set the color at all? That's a good question, and honestly, I am not sure. I think that it's always better to be safe, and that's why it's worth adding that little bit of heat. But you know, if I was solar dyeing and the heat got hot enough, you don't necessarily need to add other heat. So that is something that it is just worth it to keep in mind. And it looks like, honestly, even 2 minutes might be long enough to get the yarn piping and super steaming. I don't know if you can see that steam. There we go. Hot. I just started washing 5 of the minis. 2 that were in containers with crashed out stuff, and then 2 that were just bright red and orange and pink, and we have a tiny amount of some bleeding. Now this can happen especially if some color crashes out. Let's look and see if some soap will make it worse. I always do my best to wash the water or wash my yarn until it runs clear, but there are a few other things that can cause bleeding, which include soap. If your tap water has a pH greater than 7, so it's a little more alkaline, or heat. I do wash with cool tap water, and darn, all right, that is some bleeding. So now that we're seeing the bleeding, there are some things that we can do. We could do a lot of rinses, which I will definitely be doing. We could reset the color in the microwave. But I don't think that is our issue right now. I think that the issue is more that in one of these we had those red 3s crash out and they need to be rinsed out of the yarn. So whether or not those could stain other yarn, that I don't know. I just know that I will keep washing and then check back in. But these colors look gorgeous together. A second very soapy round, and there's still a little bit of bleeding, but it is getting better, which is a great sign. Some more rinsing later, and there is the tiniest tinge. Keep in mind that some commercial colorways run, and if you are ever going to use like a bright red next to, say, a white or something, I recommend adding vinegar to your soak if you're going to be blocking, but also do a test, because if it's something you're going to wash, you don't want to, it's better to play safe than sorry. So just do even a tiny, like 1-inch swatch to soak and see if the colors run and spread into the other parts is a good, like, fail safe. But gosh, I knit a shawl in this one commercial colorway. I think I did a blocking video with it, and then like I put it in water so that way I could get ready to block it, and just all the pink came out and I was very sad. But yeah, I mean, that's looking really, really good. So I'm gonna do a few more rinses, put the yarn through my spin dryer, and then I will be washing the rest of the yarn like this, off camera, only coming back if there's something notable or significant. Now we need to get ready for round 2, where we will look at the 25, or really 24 plus just that white that's not going to do anything, but we'll try anyway, the 25 remaining colors. Let's get going with round 2. I rinsed out each of the cups just with water, although a couple of them, like the titanium dioxide and the few where some of that red 3 had crashed out, I did have to scrub them a little more. But I didn't technically wash them. It's more of just to rinse to remove most of that vinegar. I then set them back up in our 5x5 grid, added half a cup of water, just plain tap water, and then started adding 5 drops of each of the colors to these containers. This brought us through the last few blues, a bunch of purples and pinks, some that are located in an order that feels a little random, and then finally through our browns and grays. I've played with the Shades of Gray food coloring set in the past and looked at that a few different ways. And so I'm expecting that we're going to see more of that bluish hue, because we'll probably see some breaking, but we will know for sure as we add the yarn to the colors. But first, let's take a look at all the colors before we get to adding the yarn. And once again, as I was mixing up each of these colors, I wiped my spoon onto a mini skein that had been pre-soaked in some water with vinegar, so that way we don't contaminate any of the colors as we're mixing, and we have a fun yarn mop here to help out. Alright, so I think right now it's a little hard to tell much of anything. Like, a lot of these colors look orange, and really I can't believe I didn't do this. I should have done hot water to make it easier to stir up and dissolve some of these colors, especially these pinks. They're just being a little bit more of a pain. But what I want to point out, our white, very milky, not going to add color. Of our shades of gray, I think that what's cool right here is you can see the distinct, like some are more green, some are more blue. This one barely has any pigment at all. But the gray and the black actually kind of look gray and black, but they're also super pigmented right now. So, I mean, I guess, you know, this purple almost looks black at the moment, but they will look different once we add yarn. So what I'm now going to do off camera is add a half cup of warm tap water to each of them, and then we'll come back and add the yarn. Adding the warm water to these containers did help some of the pinks finally dissolve. There's still a couple, especially the one at the bottom of the second column, that has a lot of stuff that's crashed out, but it's possible that there's nothing I could have done about that anyway. So now I went and I squeezed out the excess water from our mini skeins that had pre-soaked for probably about an hour and added them to the containers. Now, I was curious to see how some of these colors would look on the yarn, because some of the pinks look very, very brown in their liquid form. But I do know that a lot of browns dilute do tend to lean more pink than brown, at least when it comes to food coloring. So anyway, I was curious about that. Wow, okay, so I have some initial observations. This looks way less like part of the rainbow than the first half did. And maybe it's because of the presence of the pinks and the variety of all of these pink and purple hues. So this one, which I believe is mauve, I could double check, but you can see that the water left is very green. And so, I mean, I guess to help make it more mauve-y. The water for a bunch of the pinks looks very orange, but I think it could also be that those red threes will start striking pretty quickly, pretty soon to immediately. And so as we add vinegar, I expect to see more hue difference in here. This one is looking rather orange, but we will see. I'm actually surprised how many of these look purple. Like clearly I knew from the lid that this color, which, let's see. I'll bring this back over. This color was, I think, a regal purple. So therefore, I mean, I don't know why it's placed over there, but it does look very, very purple. And just to check, yes, this one is mauve. But these two are, I guess, fuchsia. That's fuchsia. The next one is burgundy. Okay, that's why they have like more brown and are a little less bright. But as for our grays, I think this one is charcoal. No, it's gunmetal. Gunmetal is actually looking very gray, and the black, which they call super black, is looking pretty black. There could be, this one I think we'll definitely see some breaking in there. This might be pigmented enough that we don't see any breaking. But now you can see that there's basically no pigment in fog whatsoever. But I think that we will see a hue difference between the white and the fog, and I think that those two I'll probably heat separately so that way we can make sure to have that comparison. I'm going to do my best on that one because that I'm super curious about. This is ash, stone, taupe, and slate. And yeah, you can see just how blue. Grays are hard. Grays are really, really hard to do with food coloring. Anytime I've gotten a true color that felt gray, it was mostly accidental. And I think that the thought and effort and planning that goes into it needs to be different when you're dealing with yarn versus when you're dealing with icing. But we still have, maybe a couple of the pinks feel very, very similar, but otherwise, these all feel extremely different from one another, and I'm really excited to see what shades of colors we get in yarn and then to combine that with the colors that we had from the first half. Next, I added 1 teaspoon of white vinegar to each of the containers, placed on the lids, and stacked them up. So that way we could set them aside for a couple of days. And well, I'm not sure if it's going to be a full week. I checked the times. The last time it was a full week, but at least a couple days should be enough for the colors to absorb just sitting at room temperature. And then we can microwave and set the color. But before we do that, we will come and take a look at whether they've cleared and how the yarn is looking. When we did the first round, it seemed like you could find a fade set looking at any column, but also a lot of the rows looked very beautiful. And this one doesn't necessarily do that in the same or obvious way. I think because the colors are laid out a little less in a gradient, but there are lots of beautiful hues here nevertheless. This time it is possible that we will need to add some more vinegar for some of the more saturated colors. Black, I am looking at you. And maybe even the navy, I'm not sure. But 1 teaspoon of vinegar in otherwise 1 cup of volume is a lot. So hopefully things will be okay and we'll see that just about everything clears like we did last time. Here are the yarn mops from round 2 from the original mixing, and then poking the yarn in and stirring up more. I think they're pretty, and I'm gonna go heat set these in the microwave right now. I set these up on a Wednesday and it's now a Saturday, and well, you can't tell, but the colors feel electric and violent or pastel and muted depending on the color. So I'm gonna go open these up and let's take some looks. Here are the last 25 colors from our Americolor 50 Nifty set. And wow, okay, so I have a lot of initial thoughts. Our white is clearly white. This color, our Fog, definitely has more pigment than the white. It is a subtle difference, but it's like a tinge of blue. But we still have the titanium dioxide in here. Ooh, it looks like there's some pinks in here too. So yes, but if I squeeze it out, there is some pale blue that remains. I'm going to try to wash, I think these two, and well, and heat set them on their own because I don't want any potential bleeding from any of the other colors to affect it. The taupe color is pretty taupe. Again, we have the titanium dioxide on the bottom. Ooh, there's some like purples in there from where things sunk down. I think that this was our gunmetal. It looked gray at first, but it's very purpley. And the black, it looked fairly black when we set it up, and wow, that's pretty good. There's some blue left. I think I might add some more vinegar to it and set that one on its own just because it's so pigmented. And in fact, over here with the huge thing, yeah, I might set that one on its own just because we know how pigmented it is. What other ones did I want to check? Our mauve, whoop, we've got some chunks in there. Oh, fun. But we've got some broken, I would say brown and pink, and it's really, really pretty. The purples have broken. This has some pink stained on the bottom, but in here, I think this one is the Regal Purple. There's definitely purple and pink in there. And this one, which is our Violet, I see some blue, purple, and pink, and some crashed out bits. So I predict we'll be dealing with some bleeding. But I'm going to go ahead and set these colors off camera. But just to show, like this blue is clear, the navy, maybe something crashed out in there too. But yeah, I mean we'll see. Let's check these pinks. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. Things were not the best dissolved. But even if instead of steaming, I go and just microwave them in these containers, I guess that'll probably be okay. But I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera, just like I did with the last one. And once things cool, I'll come back when we're ready to wash them. So once again, I'm not going to be keeping things in order that they were in the jar. I sort of wanted to point out the most notable hues that I noticed right away. But I will be keeping the second 25 separate from the first 25 until at the end when I go and mix it all up. Oh, but I guess one more thing. With our shades of gray, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Which one is this one? Slate. This feels a little bit gray. There's some pinks and blue in there from where it broke. But right now, this one feels the most grayish. The one before it feels green. Stone feels green. And what's that one? Ash. Ash is grayish too, but there's definitely, yeah, broken and pink in there. So, oh, I mean, they're beautiful, beautiful mini skeins. All right, I'll come back when it's time to wash and we'll check on, I think, specifically the black and maybe one of the others that I find to be super chunky. I'm not washing yet, but some of these just combos of color look so pretty together. Eek, I'm really excited. I'm not going to show the washing of all of these minis, but I am going to start with the white because that had no other pigment in it. It was just the titanium dioxide, and really is just going to require some rinsing to get the rest of that powder, really, that white non-soluble powder out. It actually doesn't seem to be too bad. The water doesn't look that cloudy to me. I don't think I'm even going to use soap, but yeah, I mean, I'll inspect it when it's dry to see if there's any patches of that titanium dioxide left. Next, we've got these two pastels. I'm trying to squeeze out a lot of that chalky white before going in and rinsing it. So I would say this the next palette, we've got blue and some pink. This one has more blue and pink. This one you can definitely, actually in both you can tell that there is pigment. I was concerned because it looked so chalky at first that really we wouldn't necessarily see it, but it's definitely present and there's a difference from the white. So I will be washing this with some just clear dish soap and just working to get that chalky color, or not color, that chalky powder out. So both of these actually seem to be more chalk-like than the white, at least from what I can tell so far. Okay, next up here is a mix that might bleed, because all of these did have some chunks, but there was no color left in the bowl, so actually it might be pretty good. But yeah, so right now I don't see any bleeding, which is encouraging. But we might see some with the addition of soap. I find that when there's pink left in the bottom of one of the cups, and I mean this one has titanium dioxide, it will rinse out. The crashed out pink that might be stuck on the bottom does come out with soap. So that might be why. Yep, we see some bleeding right here. So there's some dye in here that maybe I should call this crocking. But I'm not sure if it would even rub off on your hands. But just like before, I'm going to do a number of rinses, and if I need to, I will soak it with some vinegar. But this is the batch I was worried about the most when it comes to bleeding. As for the super pigmented black, the water is now clear. And the eggplant, we've got some of that crashed out pink. So this will be a contender like some of those. The yarn is all dry and whew, we've got some color here. But to take our closer look, I am going to go ahead and twist all of these into beautifully twisted minis, and we will arrange them in rainbow order from the first half and then the second half of this video. It is the moment of truth to see the range of colors we created with this nifty 50 food coloring set. Ta-da! This is beautiful. This is gorgeous. I don't think I have ever created such a range of color in mini skeins ever. And so worth it. So worth it. So beautiful. This could so easily turn into one massive project. Technically, there are 54 20-gram mini skeins in here. So to use all of these in one project would be a ton of yarn. It would be a really, really big project. But you could do this with 5-gram or 10-gram minis and, you know, break down the yarn further to explore all of these colors. And this is making me like this set a lot more. Now, granted, you could probably mix a lot of these hues yourself using some other types of food coloring. But having this box of all these pre-mixed colors, and I know Americolor also has, I think, like a Heavenly 70 kit or something. Having all of these colors is like having a crayon box. And so, yeah, you can pick and choose. Now, unfortunately, this isn't a very accurate representation for what is in the box, in the sense that I don't have these labeled. So I don't have these on swatch cards to play with. I mean, I think this one was probably mauve, that I want black. You know, that's not something that is easy to go through and pick out from this, but you definitely can make color cards. And if you want to accurately use colors reproducibly, making measured color cards and saving them on little embroidery cards or wrapping them on popsicle sticks in some kind of way so that way you can pull the colors and mix them around can be really, really useful. We already knew this, but the kit leans heavily on the reds and the pinks. There are very few yellows, very few blues, and then there's a lot of everything else in between. The way I have this laid out, the top row is the first 25 and the bottom row is the second 25. So if I was going to lay this out and use it all in one project to make some huge rainbow fade, I would mix things up a bit. I'd probably move the pinks up near the reds And then there's some other colors that I would swap around from where they're located. But man, this is just beautiful, and I am really, really excited. And oh, all right, so I'm struggling at the moment because I have to decide how to break this up. And the way I have it laid out, in theory, in some places, you could go and take like a set of 5 and be like, ooh, this makes something really pretty. But since there are some colors that are really similar, like these 2 yellows, they're different, and same with these pinks, there's differences, but they're so close. I think I want to, I guess, create something that has some bigger changes and some that are more subtle. So I'm now going to go off camera and play around with these colors and then come back and show you the sets that I've created. I haven't even talked about the bonus minis that I used as mops along the way. These are pretty, these are pastel, but I'm not mixing them in when I'm playing around making these fades because, well, there's just something missing. They don't all 5 work as a fade on their own because it's more like 2 of one colorway, 2 of another. And the others are more semi-solid with some broken, with some modeling maybe, but it just doesn't quite fit very well with the rest. So I'll save these and I'm sure I will come up with something. Here are 9 fade sets that I have created. We've got subtle ones that go from one color to another. And then we've got more rainbow ones where we have subtle or more bright, different shifts. And I think that they're all really fun. Now, I said that I've got 9. And that is because I have 5 colors left that, yeah, just didn't really fit in very well somewhere. Now, maybe I can go around and swap, like here. Maybe I can put the blue in here and take this green out. That goes with those other colors. And I need to swap the red for something. So I'm like, ooh, I'm getting closer. Like that's close to something. Let me know what you would switch around to make a more complete 10th type of set. I would also really like to hear which one of these is your favorite. Please let me know in the comments below which one of these fades excites you the most. So I'm immediately drawn to both the brights, although this is very similar to some Easter egg dye tablets. I love this green blue fade that we just modified right now. But then these deep colors right here is also really, really fun because I don't always get something this muted feeling with food coloring when I'm mixing the colors intentionally myself. So I guess those are 3. I don't know. I enjoy them all. It's hard to pick. But I'm happy because I think I've only spent about 15 minutes shuffling these around. And so this happened fairly naturally. I think, again, you could easily pick 5 colors from the box and create so many different kinds of fades. But, you know, since there are limited greens and blues, that does make some transitions a little bit more challenging. But man, these colors up here aren't gray, but on the monitor, they look gray. I think just compared to the brightness of everything else, you lose the fact that they're blue and green and subtly purple. Wow. I have used all 50 of these colors in one project, not once but twice before this video, but nothing like this. And seeing the range of colors in this little box of food coloring was really, really exciting for me. Americolor might not be my favorite liquid food coloring, but there are a lot of pluses of it, and this range of color that we got in this video is one of them. I am so excited with when we had them all laid out in mostly rainbow order. That was amazing. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the ChemKnits Tutorials YouTube channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. I always publish 2 new videos a week on Tuesday and Friday mornings, but then we have special series like this one, and you don't want to miss any of it. If you're already subscribed and want to find another way to support the content here on the channel, go and check out the ChemKnits Creations Etsy shop. The shop is filled with hundreds of skeins of hand-dyed yarn featured in my videos, and so it's a really great way to get some beautiful yarn and support more content here at the same time. I also have some limited merch on Zazzle. including my little ChemKnits mug, and I have a Patreon. You can find links to everything down in the video description. When I was going back through and editing this video, it was so exciting to go through all of the colors again, and I sort of want to do this all over again. The wide range of colors is just beautiful and stunning and exciting to me. I did consider breaking this up into 2 separate parts, but I think even though it might be a little long, it still worked all together as one video, and I really hope you enjoyed it. And for those of you who have the summer mystery sets, I hope you're enjoying opening them up and seeing which of the colorways you got. From this video, all of those sets are very different, and so it was just so fun to play with all of it. Stay tuned, because tomorrow night there will be one more Summer Miniskein mini-series dyeing video, and then on Friday night there will be a vlog of me wrapping up the minis and chatting about the extras and what went into some of my thought process along the way. Thank you so much for watching!